Yesterday, a memory came to me that put a smile on my face. It's still a very clear memory for me, but one I think I've never told you about. Do you have time now? Oh, good. So, here's a true story. It was the last week of summer before my junior year of high school. I was in a record store and I was looking for the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. But more than just Yellow Submarine, I was looking for self actualization. Of course, I wouldn't have put it into those words at that time. As you know, I feel like we grew up during a very weird time for teenagers. We were the last generation to have to go through high school without the wealth of human knowledge and experience tucked away in our pockets. And you know what? As nostalgic as this story is going to sound, let me just say that it sucked back then. I mean, of course, life is better now. A Walkman can never compare to having an entire music library at your fingertips. And I'm telling you this to give you context. When I say I was in a record store, I mean I was in a store that actually did sell records, but I was looking for CDs. Well, CDs and self actualization. It had been a miserable summer for me. I was stuck at home for most of it because I still couldn't drive. But on this day, I'd taken Bart into Berkeley, and I'd actually been at the Berkeley Public Library earlier in the day, but I'd been shushed by a librarian there and left after that. I hadn't been talking. I'd been listening to my portable CD player, and my headphones were so cheap that they leaked sound everywhere. I was so embarrassed when this old woman tapped me on the shoulder, and this was back when strangers still felt they had the right to touch you if you were younger than them, and pointed at a no loud music sign. But I wanted music more than I wanted books, so I walked up from Shattuck up to Telegraph Avenue and to the record store there. Actually, it doesn't matter what record store it was. I'd been brought up on the Beatles, and this was the summer that my dad started to lament that he hadn't exposed me to different kinds of music when I was a kid. I hadn't yet developed my own tastes, and I didn't know where to begin. Like, I'm not so old we didn't have the internet back then, but it just occurred to me, it never occurred to me to ask Jeeves what I should listen to next, you know? So I was seeking the familiar. I was frustrated and worried about returning to school the next week. Junior year is this year you're supposed to start getting serious about college. Adults keep telling you you're full of potential at this age, but they also consistently remind you of all the things you can't do. No smoking, no drinking, no sex before you're 18. I had friends who did all of these things, but I didn't. Couldn't tell you why either. No loud music. No having fun. So I was looking for Yellow Submarine, and I was also looking for something else. And as I flipped through the Y's, suddenly I landed on it. I can still see the album cover in my mind's eye as clearly as I see you now. Just one word: yes. And that was enough for me. If you haven't heard the first Yes album, you should go listen to it now. Go listen and then come back. It'll take you about 40 minutes. Ideally, listen with headphones, but listen, okay? As some incentive, there's even a Beatles song on it. Yeah. So the first song on the album, Beyond and Before, begins with the lyrics, masquerading leaves of blue run circles around the morning dew, patterns understood by you, reaching out beyond and before. I had no idea what that meant, but it meant something, and it sounded so good to me. Thank you, Chris Squire. Okay, if you've listened and you think it's too hippy dippy, well, then you feel as all my friends back in high school, and I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, this was their debut album from 1969. I'd never been into psychedelics, but I understood that those were weird times. There's something to be said about positivity, though. I mean, yes, prog rock sounded to me then like the natural progression of everything I'd heard up to that point, and also completely original. It sounded like a beginning. You know, I was alive from the House of Blues. I know you'll be able to hear what I mean the more you listen. I'm not going to lie. The first album's a little rough. They were still years away from Relayer and more than a decade away from 90125 and Owner of a Lonely Heart. These were albums that, along with their others, I would faithfully collect over the next few years and into college. And meanwhile, I continued on into high school, and high school was tough. But for the first time, I was seeing the path ahead of me clearly. With this music, I discovered a part of myself that was waiting within, and that made all the difference. I could make a choice. And this was the journey I agreed to go on. Before I took that first step, before I was led on to the roundabout, before I climbed the ladder, before I learned the keys to ascension, it all began with that first moment of ascent. I'm still listening. And as an adult, I have even fewer answers than I did as a teenager. Can I tell you with complete certainty that I know the meaning behind beyond and before now? Maybe not. But if you ask me if I believe in the transformative power of music, if life can be changed with the lyrics, just one song, my answer is in just one word: yes.